Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined with my very special guest, Metta. How are you doing today, Metta?
I'm doing good, thank you.
And where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from a very remote rural place in the northeastern US.
Okay, and it's quite cold there, or has summer arrived? Spring's there, or
We're just rolling with the spring. We had our last snowfall last week.
was it quite a harsh winter, or it was okay? Because I can see there's
It
a
was
wood.
pretty good.
You've got a wood burning stove in the back, but you've also got a air conditioner, and you've got
Yes.
the mountain picture. So I'm assuming it gets very hot too.
Yes, it can get slightly hot as well in summer.
That's nice. Okay, so your name, Metta. Sounds very interesting. What does it mean? Where's it from? So, like, my name is Manjinder. It means Lord of Mind, which is quite suitable. But Metta is a beautiful name.
Thank you. My name's derived from a Pali word. Pali is a 2,500-year-old language that was used during Buddha's time.
Okay.
And it represents a type of meditation where we cultivate love, kindness, and compassion for all the beings in the world. And that's what it represents.
And like Metta, I remember I do a lot of Vipassana meditation, or used to, and it's called Metta Bhavana. Is that similar? Is that what it means?
Yes, that's the same thing.
Okay. So, before we begin and find out about your background, meeting your twin flame, I just want to tell everyone that you provide lots of services, right? You coach people, twin flames, people who are maybe in narcissistic relationships. You can do spiritual counseling. You also can tell if someone's a twin flame and do also love letters. I mean, what else do you do? Like, what are your services? Because you're very spiritually awakened and aware, right?
Yeah. So the major of my service is around the abuse and trauma counseling from a spiritual perspective because it's difficult to make sense when a person goes through a high level of trauma and come out of that and recover. So if we are spiritually more aware, it becomes easier to make sense of it. And with twin flame and soulmate counseling, I can guide them in a way that they are more equipped to understand what their journey is and intuitively help them know the person they are dealing with could be could be a twin flame or maybe not a twin flame, and just be able to see that, because sometimes we are so focused on twin flame label that even when a person's not a twin flame we want to believe that, and that could put us in a situation where we are unsafe. And so again, in that perspective, I if not completely, because I don't think anyone can actually tell if someone has a twin flame or confirm it, but we can only open somebody's eyes towards the fact that they might not be seeing, which can help them decipher if the person's actually a twin flame or karmic.
Yeah, I mean, what is the actual difference? Because a lot of people now have heard the label. I mean, I was on YouTube the other day and they had an advert from Tinder and it was like, find your twin flame. And I was like, on Tinder? And then all these like documentaries and things. And I mean, what do you think? Like, some people say there's 144,000. What do you think about how many twin flames there are? What's the difference as well?
um, in identifying the actual twin flame, there is always going to be a spiritual component
Okay. So,
to that particular dynamic. And if there is no spiritual component, then I am pretty confident it's not a twin flame connection, because all the people that I've seen, spoken to, and heard stories of, when there was not a twin flame, sorry, a spiritual component involved, eventually a few months down the line, it did turn out to be a narcissistic relationship.
yeah, and with the twin flame, you can never really forget them. And it's not obsession, it's like it's your soul, right? And you feel a deep longing and ego death from separation. And we'll talk about things like Kundalini, Tantra, because that's very important to twin flames. And we'll go into all those things. But your services, people can find you on TikTok, and I'll put the name in the description, but it's Metta, METTA_twin, right?
Hmm. Yes.
And then in there, you've got a link to your bio with all your services that you provide.
Yes.
And what is this? You say you do a love letter from the twin flame. Do you channel that, or how do you
Yeah.
speak with their higher self? Like, what do you do?
Yeah. So I first time started channeling when I met my twin the first time. So I wrote a poem, and I had not written a poem for anybody in 5 years before I had met him. And I've never even written a poem towards my ex-husband, who I was married to for a few years. And so it was very bizarre for me to write a poem for a man I've just met like 4 days ago and I've never seen before in my life. And so since then, every time I feel the energy, I write poems. And then those poems turned into love letters when I sat my 21-day retreat for Vipassana last year. And then it just like so many downloads came through, and I had to write it on paper, and I realized I can channel not only my divine masculine's higher self, but if I'm having a conversation with someone else, I can channel their higher self and what they need to know, or the person they love and what they want to tell the person they
Do you think
love.
this is an ability we can all do, or it's something that is gifted to you?
That's a very good question. I think inherently we all have these qualities, and it's only matter of going deep and working through our own conditioning that helps us in uncovering these abilities, and then seeing ourselves and being able to help others as well.
And so basically, we're going to go into detail about, obviously, you work in the services, you help people who are married, and that is all because of your background as well, because you also had the same experience when you met your twin flame whilst you were married. But let's first go into the background of like where you from, what's your background, how was your family, how was your childhood, were you always spiritually focused? When did you have like your awakening and things like that?
So I'm from India, and I grew up there. I've been in the US more or less almost 10 years now. And growing up was very spiritual because all my family meditates. And so both my parents are like very serious meditators. So ever since childhood, I've always seen them meditate, and they would take us on meditation retreats when we were kids.
So are they
And
Buddhist as well or Hindu?
no, so we don't follow a religion per se, and I'm very grateful for that, for my parents, that they didn't ever pressure me into following a religion, and I could make that choice for myself. And my choice in the end was to pursue this path and lifestyle of meditation that I feel very connected to. And I realized the first time I was spiritually gifted when I was around 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
And that's very young. And I get that from my mom.
So what happened?
Um,
Did you see something or feel something or know
Feel.
something?
When I was a kid, it was all about feeling. And when I was 3 and 4, I just felt a couple of things with respect to us going out and it not being safe. So I told my parents that I don't feel comfortable, and I started crying because I couldn't explain. And then they got worried that why is this child crying? So let's just cancel plans and stay. So eventually, it was realized that something came up in the event that we were going to go, and it became a big complication for people who were attending. So me being worried actually saved everybody
You saved your
from.
family, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the greatest way I have saved I and my family would be the tsunami of 2004 that took place in Indonesia.
Yes.
So I and my parents were actually vacationing in Andaman Nicobar Islands,
Oh wow, okay.
and that got really badly hit by it, and we actually left Andaman Nicobar
It's a
a
beautiful,
day.
I've been there, it's beautiful islands, gorgeous
Yes.
beaches, yes.
We left a day and a half before the tsunami hit.
Were
So
you
actually when we were leaving,
yeah.
I could feel the earthquake as a 13-year-old.
And were you meant to leave early, or you left earlier because of the
No, we
flood?
were actually meant to be on the island when the tsunami was hitting it. But I said that, let's leave early. I want to go see Chennai, and I don't want to spend time in Andaman Nicobar as much. So we flew out to Chennai a day and a half early, and then we spent time in Chennai, and then we went back home. 2 days later, we get the news that the tsunami has hit.
Wow. So you've always been connected, intuitive, knowledge about what's going to happen, and your family were all meditating. What kind of meditation did they do, and what did they teach you?
So they practice Vipassana. And when I was a kid, I grew up doing a lot of breath work, so anapana. So I did a lot of that.
So for those who I do Vipassana as well, I've been on many retreats. I used to do two a year before. It's very excruciating. The silent meditation retreats, right? For 10 full days, but you're there actually for 12 days. You cannot move your arms or legs for an hour, 3 times a day. Well, you're not meant to. And you meditate from morning till night, like sometimes 11, 12 hours. It can be very excruciating on the body, but you're purifying your consciousness by staying equanimous or balanced or 0 point in the now present, not craving or not pushing things away, having aversions, which I think is very suited to the twin flame journey, don't you think?
Yes, I agree, because that helps in actually ascending and really working, ascending in a way that we get to work through the layers of conditioning we have on our minds. And as we work through those, we become lighter and we become brighter.
So, when I meditate now, I just do inner child self love, but because I find that to be very effective. Do you do Vipassana meditation still?
Mhm. I just sat 2 hours before our call.
Oh, okay. And then so usually, not always, but usually the divine feminine is more spiritual, more advanced. Not always, some divine masculines are too. So the work that we are doing as divine feminines from childhood and the meditations, is that transferred to the masculine, do you think, during childhood, or does it get transferred after meeting them? Like, how does that work? Like, we are communicating with them, giving that good karma purification to both at that time as well?
Yes, I think we are always connected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how you felt, but I always knew as a young person that my twin flame was going to be white and from the Mediterranean, and I don't know if you had thoughts of that. But let's talk. Well, we'll get to that. We'll talk about what your twin flame's like. But first of all, in your background, when did you, first start realizing like having a spiritual awakening? Was it when you met your twin flame, or was it before that?
It was before that. It was when I sat my second retreat. That was in 2012. And that's when I literally went to the depths of my awakening. There was no way coming back from that. I literally changed person inside out. And I feel like going back to your previous point, are we connected to our twins since the beginning? That's why I said yes, because I feel like when I had that awakening, that started, my twin started feeling it, even though we hadn't met each other. He started feeling the emptiness in the meaning of life. And he became crazy to find a practice that gives answers out of the suffering of life. And and in the same time, he's trying to find answers in meditation and trying to find a practice. And I am going crazy because I don't feel at home in my country. So both the things were simultaneously happening. I had my awakening that triggered him, and him getting triggered to find the practice triggered me to move out of my country.
And what is a spiritual awakening? Because you said this was your second retreat. Why did it happen on the second one and not the first one? And what was it that happened? Can you describe what it was?
So I was very young when I did the first one. I was 18.
Okay.
And I feel like 18 is an age where we haven't seen enough of life for us to truly understand the suffering that we actually live through. And since I hadn't lived that much, I didn't get a perspective. And when I sat the second retreat, I already had finished most of my college, and I only needed to do my internship. So I had gone through a big chunk of life that was important to grow up. And having seen that gave me an insight of being unattached and, the practice of non-attachment. And because if I hadn't gone through my failed relationship through college, both my boyfriends and the toxic uh, the way toxic my college was, I wouldn't have understood what truly is the right way or the right not being suffering through this. And when I did that, that was the big difference. And when I became unattached, I really realized how badly I was attaching to an outcome of my relationship, outcome of what people did. And I kept putting the blame on others, like they did this to me, XYZ said this to me. But in the end, it all came back to me because people can do whatever they want. In the end, it's our perception and how we protect ourselves.
It's really interesting, the whole concept of non-attachment, because when we talk about that with twin flames, like a lot of people who contact me, I want him now, I want her now, I can't live, forget spiritual awakening. I was quite similar, if I'm honest with you. To be honest, it drives you crazy in the beginning. And I used to read things on Quora, and it used to say, oh, it's about spiritual awakening, ascension. I was like, I don't want that. I just want the man. And like this non-attachment, like, it's easy said than done. I remember, like, right now the Mercury retrograde is going on. Thank God, I've been left and blessed this time around. I didn't get affected, but I know a lot of twins have, a lot of masculines have. And when you're going through all the madness and the obsession, when we say be non-attached, that kind of is hard. It's impossible sometimes.
Without a practice, it's very hard because then if you're non-attached, then what do you focus on?
So, what is the practice, and how do you get to that place of it's surrender as well, isn't it? Non-attachment. How do you? What's your practice of doing that?
So it all comes back for me to in Vipassana. Non-attachment is also a sense of living in the present. So living in the present could be, if we look at a broader perspective, am I safe? Okay, do I have food? Do I have people who love me? Do I love myself? These are big things. But then if we go on a very deep level, then it goes to like minute details. So if I'm in the moment and everything that arises in my mind and my body, am I aware of what's arising? Am I aware of its passing? And I'm aware that it's changing. So today, tonight, I want, for example, I would want my divine masculine. Like, cool. I accept the feelings and I look at myself as in I observe whatever's coming in my mind and showing up on my body. Like, okay, I think I want my divine masculine, and I observe however long it lasts. And then eventually everything changes. It changes. So maybe sometime later I wouldn't want him. Or I would have something that I need to take care of in my physical life that's taking my attention. That means I'm not focused on him, I'm focused on what I need to do. That doesn't mean that I'm going to suffer through it,
Do
or that
we
doesn't mean that I'm going to avoid him.
do we attach ourselves to God then, or the universe, or even then we should detach?
Then it's up to the practice that anyone else follows. For me, I don't attach to God or universe per se, but I do believe in them.
Because
So
it,
I
carry on. Sorry.
because I believe in universe showing us signs and putting us in situations which protect us and show us the direction. And that is very important sometimes when we are lacking sense of direction.
And it's really interesting because this whole thing about twin flames, the story, the label has so much connotations and energy attached to it, attachment to running and chasing and masculine and feminine, which perpetuates that same cycle. And I'm getting to a stage of total, getting rid of that label. Even the divine masculines from the beginning, they're so advanced in that sense, they don't like it usually. So, what do you think about the twin flame label itself?
Um,
Is it
what's the
useful?
point in label? It is what it is, right? We can call it twin flame, twin souls, soulmates. In the end, it is what it is. So, this is for people who get attached to the label. Is that there's no point in being attached to a label, because in the end, whatever their connection is with a person, it is what it is. Whether they call it a twin flame or whether it's a karmic, it doesn't matter.
You know, it's interesting because all my life I grew up, and my mum's always said this. I don't know if it's an Indian thing, maybe it is, that there's nothing in the world for anyone. There's nothing in life for anyone. We're gonna leave everything behind. There's nothing here, and it's better just to be non-attached, detached, and just focus on the now with God, and not to be very worldly, like attached to things. Like money and wealth and status and power. I don't know if that's like an Indian way or it's my mom's way, but I always think about that. And even now, like I think it's easier for me to like detach from the twin flame as well, because I'm like, it's only a person. And if you're the same energy, it's always going to be there. So just what is what is the body, right? What is the physical? What do you think?
I agree with you on the Indian teachings. The same thing happened to me. I wish in my case it was if there was a little bit more reinforcement on a better sense of self, it would have saved me for my karmic relationship. But there wasn't. So I was very unattached, and it it didn't serve me well. But I did learn through that. And coming to the point where you said that um, the twin flame label and the divine masculines, that they are very unattached, but how do we regulate that? So they
Mm,
are logical. For them, terms don't matter. And if they are open, they will be open to the dynamic and the energy and the feelings. But if they are not aware, then they wouldn't be. So since they are not also attached to the label, and they are not aware of the energy and the feelings, then it's hard for them to realize what this truly is. And in my case, I'm going to give you an example of my divine masculine in this case. I don't think he cared about labels ever, but he did tell me 2 or 3 times that we are connected. And that came out because he had watched a movie 2 days before, and that's the movie I recommended him 2 days after. And he said, "Oh, I just watched it like last night." Like, cool. And then he said, "Oh, I think we are very connected." Like, cool. And then the second time happened when um, a lot of people in his life were born on the same day as I was. It could have been different years, but exactly the same day. And it's like 5 or 6 people. And which is true, because now the people that I volunteer with, I have heard from them as well that it's very common. It's like a clique of people who were born on the same day. So when I told them my birthday, they were like, "Wow, you're just like missing piece of our puzzle." And so when he mentioned to me, he was surprised, and he was like, "Now I'm curious what role you're going to play in my life." And I think we are very connected, given you were born on the same day as so many people who have changed me
oh.
over the years.
So let's go back to your second Vipassana retreat where you had a spiritual awakening. What is a spiritual awakening? What happened to you? And let's hear it. Yeah. Does it happen to everyone?
Yes. Um, my definition of spiritual awakening is when the conditioning that we grow up with is shattered, and we see things for what they really are in the world, as in people aimlessly running after a career, after a
Mm,
college degree, after money. What is the point? Because they all want to be happy. But then they don't realize the happiness does not lie in an external factor, but it's something that you cultivate within. But the main problem for these people, like for everyone, is that we don't know a practice to cultivate it within. So we put the attention on external things, and in for the sake of our conversation, it's going to be a twin flame.
mhm,
And Did you want to add anything?
No, and it's I was just saying the fact that you want this, then you want this, then you want this. You're constantly chasing, chasing, chasing. You want this car, you want this money, you want that thing. You want the twin flame like this, but the twin flame has to be like that. You're controlling, controlling. It's always outside.
Yes. Yeah. So the spiritual awakening I had was that everything I want and I need to be is within me.
And you just had
And
that just was a realization whilst you were meditating, just came to you, or you had a feeling or some visuals.
it was just through the experience in the meditation. I didn't have my visuals didn't start growing in the course or the retreat per se, but they started, I'd say, like a month or 2 months after that.
And then after the retreat, your awakening happened. Did that give you a push to change your life or move
Yes.
some?
So I came out and I broke up with my ex, my second boyfriend at the time, who I had actually seen in my meditation cheating on me, and I'd seen him writing a text to his ex. And he didn't, I mean, of course, he didn't know that I could see that, but I'd seen it. So I found his ex and I asked her, "Hey, are you still cheating on me with him? Or are you still his girlfriend?" And she says that, "No, I'm still his girlfriend." I'm like, "Then what is he doing with me for the last 2 years? Did you know that I've been his girlfriend as well?" And then she goes like, "No, I did not." I'm like, "Cool. You know what? I want to break up with this guy, but I want to break up with him in the most dramatic way." And so we both called him. This is 2 days after retreat. We both called him from my phone. And I said, "Hey, I have somebody for you on the phone. Do you want to talk?" And he's like, "Oh, who is it?" He thought it's going to be like some kid
Friend
or
or
one of my
something?
patients or something. Is like, "Sure." And so she talks, and then he goes crazy. He's like, "How did you meet?" I'm like, "You know what, dude? You're done. Your life is done over here. And don't contact me. Don't even look at me hereafter. And don't even try and talk to me. Just stay away from me." And that was the big change I made. And everybody came to know about what happened.
And then I remember we've spoken before, and you mentioned that before the Vipassana, you used to be quite an angry person and used to walk into a room and people used to walk out and they didn't like your energy. But after the Vipassana, the second one, you changed, right? And people started asking you all sorts of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. They would ask me, like, what did I do? What changed that made me so centered, calm, and focused?
And that was just after your second retreat. You had all those changes.
Because I realized, right, uh, I am responsible for what I experience. Like my reactions are in my control. I can't control other people, but I can only control myself. So if I don't like anyone's actions, I can remove from that.
And you create your
And
own reality, and everything is projection from within.
yeah,
And if you're angry, you're going to attract that and you're going to create that. And yeah, in Vipassana they teach you just to be observing of it, right?
yeah.
So you left you had a spiritual awakening, people noticed that you're changed, and then how did you get to the USA? What happened?
Yeah, so a couple of months later, like I told you, like my awakening triggered my twin, and then him trying to find a practice that spiritually helps him triggered me to come close to him.
And he's in the US.
Yes. So I went nuts. Like I think after 6 or 7 months, I went crazy. I could not think but just leave India. And there was not even there was nothing causing me to leave. It was just that I couldn't feel at home anymore. I just felt restless.
Before you were happy in India.
Mhm.
Okay, so now you want to leave, and then what
Yeah.
happened? Then what happened?
So then I'm like, okay, how if I gotta leave, how am I gonna leave? Well, my parents are not particularly rich at all. And so I'm going to need money. So what do I do? And then I started thinking, what's my strength? Well, I'm academically very strong. So let me use that. So let's go study. I didn't even know this was a thing in the country that everybody would go study abroad. I didn't even know that. I just thought, like, for me, this is the only way. And it was the only way. people suggested different ways, like me getting arranged marriage with a guy who's already abroad.
Yes, I was thinking that. Yeah,
Yeah, there were many.
avenues, options.
Yes, and people did suggest because they didn't want me being alone,
Yeah.
and I'm like, nope, that's not gonna happen. And my mom did try under the pressure, but I am way too outspoken for to have been do that. It wouldn't have worked either way. So yes, it was a very hard journey again for me to move to US, extremely hard. The only way I can describe it is going to be you take one step forward every day and 100 steps back. And just imagine doing that for a year and a half every
So
day.
you came to the US to study at university in college,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
what did you study? Where were you? And then
Oh, what did I study? I studied uh, community health and public health. So
okay,
that was most of it. And I originally wanted to study something clinical like a nursing degree or going back to a college, maybe med school or dental school, but I couldn't do that. So I chose with a non-clinical path. And even when I had come here, where I was in my college town, I didn't feel quite at home because I was still away from my divine masculine and the meditation place that I felt connected to.
did you feel your divine masculine at that time? Did you know who it would be? What culture? What background? Did you have any inklings of who it was?
Not at all. That's why when the first time I saw him, it felt like everything stopped and I could and blurred behind me and behind him. And the only thing I could see is his face and up until his waist. And that's it.
So yeah,
Nothing else.
let's talk about that. The first time you met your twin flame, what culture is he? What background? Where did you meet him?
So I met him at one of the meditation centers. It has been 7 years, 7 months. And on Saturday, it's gonna be 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days.
Wow, and you know, seven. I don't know if it's for you as well. My dad always uses the word seven. I don't know if that's like a spiritual like connotation to
I
that.
think so. Yeah, it has a spiritual connotation, which I don't know per se what it represents. I
So
remember about two and fours, they represent abundance and prosperity, but I don't remember about seven. And he's not from the same culture, so that's why when I saw him the first time, I was shocked because in my mind, I feel like my twin's like way out of my league, literally at the time. That's what I felt.
so he's white or another nation?
Yes,
Yeah, he's white, and
he's.
you met him at the Vipassana retreat, and what were you doing? You were meditating or volunteering or
I was volunteering at the time, and that was my first time volunteering in the US, which was quite different than how we do it in India, and I feel like it's more rewarding in the US.
yeah, because in
Yeah.
India, when you serve or volunteer at Vipassana, they have people who cook and clean and wash and they pay them because it's cheap, labor is cheap, and then the rest of the people are just doing the admin or helping the students. Whereas in outside of India, if you volunteer for Vipassana, which I have done, it is grueling. You are cooking, cleaning from morning till night.
Yes, I know, and that's where I found a lot of joy. I mean, I'm not a kitchen proficiency. I don't have kitchen proficiency, to be honest, after my karmic relationship, but I can do a lot of admin work and delegation and just observing, monitoring. And so I've gotten really good at it in the last few years when I've served. And it can be grueling though, but it's very fulfilling. I find it very fulfilling.
So go on, tell us about the first time you met him. What happened?
What so I was in the dishwashing area and I was putting the dishes away. He was on the staff and he comes behind me. So he walks behind me in the kitchen and he's putting stuff away. And I just feel that someone's there and they're doing something while I'm doing my task. And after some time, that feeling changes into feeling a light bubble, a warm light bubble that's walking through the room. And that's what I feel. My back is still towards him. I have not seen him. And then he does all that, and then he comes close to me, and he stands right adjacent to me on the left hand side. And then we both together start putting the dishes away in the drying rack. And then we are talking, and then I'm answering him something, and I just turn around, and that's when everything freezes around me, in me, and everything blurs around us. Thankfully, there was nobody around us, because it would have been awkward as heck if somebody had seen that. And we both literally are just looking at each other. Nothing.
Is it like time stops?
Completely.
That's what I think. Yeah, I feel it like that. And then what happened?
So we are just like that, and then like, oh my God. And then we come back. I mean, I come back and he comes back, of course. And then we do the chores, and then I realized I have a few other tasks I need to do. So I'm like, okay, excuse me, I gotta go and do that. And then I could breathe finally. I'm like, what was that?
And
I
I just want to mention, you've had relationships before, so it's not like
Yes.
infatuation. With the twin flame, it's completely not human. It's out of this
Mhm.
world.
It's not human. And I knew that the first time I saw him, because I have been very attracted to people in the past, and people have been very attracted to me too. But this was unimaginable. And so the retreat starts, and then we are in the kitchen together. He's monitoring us, telling us what to do, cooking and everything. And then on day 4, that's the Vipassana day, everybody, all the volunteers, students, teachers are supposed to go and sit. And since he was the staff, he was supposed to cook the dinner for everyone. And I didn't want to have him do it by himself. So I said, okay, I want to cook with you. I want to help you. And then he just couldn't feel comfortable accepting that. I'm like, what's the problem? Like, why? And I kept looking up, not looking. I was actually borderline growling and glaring at him like, no, I want to help you. And we were kind of having that silent, a very succinct argument in the kitchen when his best friend came in, whose birthday is on the same day as mine. And then he looks at me, he looks at him, and then I look at him, and then I look at my twin, and then I'm like, you know what? Cool. I take my apron off and I go and leave. And I'm so full of energy, I'm vibrating. And I'm already at the meditation center. So, like my energy is more augmented by the vibration of the center. So I'm like, I ought to take a break. So I sit right outside the dining hall, and there's a curtain that's partitioning the area of women's area and the common area. And they talk something, and then he comes out to see me, and he realizes I'm sitting behind the curtains, but he doesn't come inside, because again, men are not allowed in women's area. He just stands there, and he knows I'm there. He's there for like 30-40 seconds, and then he leaves inside. And then I go in my room and I meditate there. And that is the moment I wrote the first poem for him. And in that poem that I wrote, he's full of tattoos. Like we talked about the cultural differences. He is a white, tall, Scandinavian, muscular man covered with tattoos. Okay. And so he has a tattoo on his arm that has a very cute little elephant. And I remembered that, and that came in my vision, and I started writing a poem about it. And I literally wrote what I feel for him and what we are. It was like the visions and the feelings of my past lives just coming like a barrage of memories in my mind.
And your energy in your body was really, really high
I
or
was
vibrating.
vibrating on a different dimension. I was not on a human plane. It was like that entire 10 day, I was not on a human plane. I was somewhere else.
Do you think that was your Kundalini awakening?
No, because my Kundalini awakening was even more intense than this.
Okay, so let's go in order and we'll talk about your Kundalini awakening. So after you went over there and you meditated, what happened? Like, did you have a bubble phase? Did you run, chase? What happened?
Um, I chased a little bit. he didn't run per se, but he kept me at a distance because I was married at the time. And
Okay. And that's very
yeah,
interesting because a lot of the people I work with, they talk about being married and what to do. So well, let's listen.
yeah. And I did want to go to him. I won't lie. I really wanted to relinquish my marriage. I'm like, screw this, I want my twin. I mean, twin as in I want him, I don't want anyone else, but I couldn't. I had many barriers. And one of those barriers was karmically, I was supposed to learn a couple of lessons, which I would not have prepared me to be with him today if I hadn't gone through those. And I did have the feelings to leave my ex husband when I was married, when I met my twin, but I didn't. And he kept his distance. My twin has the greatest integrity that I have ever seen in a man ever have.
So were you in a happy marriage?
In the beginning, yes, it was a very good marriage. There were, of course, there were some arguments, problems, but it wasn't something that was abusive to start with, to the degree that I encountered towards the end, where he would beat me like almost weekly. And I was constantly in fear, like getting strangulated, being dragged up and down the stairs. It was just bad.
And he was getting triggered by your what was causing this to happen? Your vibration, your energy. Why was he? Why did he go from being nice to being violent?
Because I was ascending, I started meditating very regularly, for many hours sometimes. And when I and my twin would be in contact, if we text each other that day, we would talk to each other like, "Hey, do you want to sit together? Let's meditate together." So he would meditate at the same time at his place, and I would meditate over here, and we would do this repeatedly a lot, sometimes like 3-4 hours a day.
So when you were meditating at the same time, were you meeting each other in the astral realm that way, or was there energy exchange? What was happening?
There was energy exchange, but we didn't meet each other per se in astral. That didn't start happening um, until I started my Kundalini awakening. That's when we started meeting in astral.
So let's hold on to the Kundalini. So your husband started becoming aggressive and violent, dragging you, beating you on a weekly basis. And I don't know how you were managing and coping with this at the same time trying to meditate. Do you feel like your ex husband could feel that you were in a twin flame situation and he was triggered by that?
No, I never told him about my twin. Thankfully, that I think that was the best part, that I did not know the twin flame label when I was still married, because then I couldn't explain this to him. So I did explain him one time. I did explain my ex-husband one time that I feel like I want to follow a more spiritual path. And his suggestion was that I renunciate and become a nun. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what I want. You cannot
And
understand
this
my
was
spiritual
whilst you
journey.
were married, he was saying become a nun.
Yes. And he did not understand what path I wanted to follow. And the more I meditated, the more I purified my vibrations, the more he got triggered because he could not stand my light.
Do you think it brought out his shadows for him?
Yes, because I would call him out. I would call him out on things that I would let slide before because I was becoming more self aware.
And
And he did not like it.
there's a lot of people out there who are married and they meet their twin flame, either both are married or one's married. And some people are in a happy marriage, and then some people are in like not good situations. What's your advice for those people?
The greatest advice I would give is what I followed, that I ask myself what I want. Do I want to be in a marriage where I'm not able to grow and there's stagnancy? Or do I want to keep growing in life? There was no question of twin flame in my case. I did not leave my ex husband for my twin. I left my ex husband for myself. And if and when my twin comes along, I'll accept him, but that he is not the reason why I left my ex-husband, and that should be for everybody. And because karmically it just entangles you all together, and that's not good, because when you leave a person for somebody else, then their karma, like, karmically it's just very messy. And I and my twin were very self-aware since the beginning that we want to keep each other separate, from our own personal lives, from previous personal lives before we met, because we don't want to involve, like, we love and respect each other so much that we don't want to involve each other in our karmic situation that we don't need to. And that was one of the reasons why I never told my twin about what was happening in my marriage until 6 months after I left my ex-husband. And my ex-husband would never know about my twin.
So, do you feel like if you're married, anyone, they will be pushed to leave the marriage eventually if you're a twin flame, or once the karma is played out? Or because some people ask, should I stay with my husband? Should I go with a soulmate? Or should I wait for my twin? What do you think?
I don't agree with going with a soulmate at all,
Why?
because in my case, I feel like I've settled enough with my karmic partner and with everything that I have gone through and endured. I want the real person. I want my person. I don't want to settle for anything else, because even if I did, it would not fulfill me. It would not help me grow spiritually in my practice if if it were my twin, because my twin really gets me. And there's also, uh, I feel in our lifetimes we want to go on a long retreat just by ourselves as a couple, somewhere remote, and just be there for like a year or a year and a half. And that's not possible with somebody who is your soulmate and doesn't really understand where you're coming from. And I've tried this with my soulmates and it did not work.
So, do you think only a twin flame can help you ascend?
To the degree that we really want to be liberated, yes.
Because after you meet your twin flame, you start to ascend quite fast, right? And
Yes.
therefore your vibration is so high, it doesn't match a lot of other people around you, like soulmates. They're not catching up. But because your twin is your mirrored soul, they are forced to mirror that and to catch up to that vibration. So do you feel like only a twin flame will be able to match you in ascension then?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And I do want to circle back to the point that you asked me earlier, that what should people do if they're in a happy marriage?
mhm.
The first thing is they want to ask, they should ask themselves, what do they really want in life? You know, a happy marriage or a stable marriage is a good thing. But then what's the purpose of any marriage? Is it helping you grow, or any relationship? And if there is no sense of growth, then how does that justify their ascension?
Because some people say to me, I have a loving husband, happy marriage, but then I have a crazy twin. So how can I leave that for that? There's no security. But then they haven't got. I think they haven't got rid of they're still not having faith and trust in the universe, right? In the divine.
Yeah. Um, Marriage is meant to be stable by society, and that's why it was invented. If it was not, then we would all be like Neanderthals or Cro-Magnons, where everyone's with everybody. There's no system, there is no regulation in human civilization. So for people who don't have self-discipline, that's why marriage and this entire 3D programming was invented. You go to college, you get a job, you get married, you buy a house, you have kids, raise kids, put them through college, you retire, and then you wait and die. That's the programming.
It's security. It's coasting. It's settling. And whereas like twin flames is about liberation, right?
It's about jumping off a cliff, not knowing when you're going to hit the ground or if you're going to hit the ground.
But having trust that you'll be fine regardless.
Yes.
And what I love about Indian mythology and religion and Hinduism and all that is in the core of it, there is the divine masculine, there is the divine feminine. It does talk about twin flames. The label is, in most religions and cultures around the world, but it's been distorted. It's been distorted in the sense of, just settle, have a marriage, just be together for the sake of it, rather than be together to liberate yourselves and ascend, which is the true purpose. I mean, I was at my cousin's wedding the last couple of weeks Indian wedding, and at the Sikh ceremony, the marriage, they talked about, marriage is for praying to God, becoming one soul, ascending and liberating yourselves. But I don't think soulmates can do that for you. It's only a twin flame.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
tell me more about let's talk about your Kundalini now, and Tantra and things like that. Let's get into it.
Okay. I had decided when I left my ex-husband that I am not going to date or even be physically involved with anyone until I am very ready, spiritually aware, and the partner truly understands me, as in my energy, and is able to accept me.
And did you want to be with your twin at that time, or you were surrendered, detached?
No, I didn't like. That's part of the story that I didn't even want anyone because I came out of that marriage and I was in such a rough shape that I didn't want to be with somebody with the way I was healing. And I was like in between my healing. So it was a very distorted version of myself.
And even how did you leave? Because there's so many people who just can't leave those situations. And you were an Indian living in the USA. Obviously, you immigrated, you've been there for a while, but to leave a marriage with the whole family, I don't know, the society, they becoming a divorced woman. How did you manage to leave?
It was hard. I mean, I don't have parents per se. So I mean, I knew when I leave him, I wouldn't have a place to go. So I'll have to either ask to stay at a friend's place or like just go to a hotel and just stay there a couple of days. And it just happened very serendipitously, I feel, and it also happened at the end of Mercury retrograde
So you believe the
because
universe pushed you out?
yeah, my sister kind of um she she kind of figured something was wrong going on, and out of nowhere she called cops on my ex-husband and the cops came home, and it was fine, like we were just having dinner, and the cop showed up at the door and then he opens the door and then he's trying to keep me away, and then I'm trying to stay away, but then there was like a split second where I realized this is my window. I gotta get out of this right now. If I don't, it's not happening. So despite him trying to push me back the stairs, not come in front of the cops, I pushed him away and I was like, okay, I wanna leave this man, he's hurting me.
Wow.
And
So did your
so he was
sister
shocked.
know? Did your sister know he was hurting you?
Yeah, that's why she called the cops, but she did not know the extent of how much he was hurting me. And so again, he's a very scared person. So he started trying to convince me, like, hey, don't tell cops, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, no, this is not about you anymore. This is about me, and I'm leaving you. It does not matter what you say or do. I'm done with you. And so the cops waited. I packed my bags in like 20 minutes or something. So I packed 10 years of my life in 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I left him. I left my house that I've never been in ever since. And then he took over the house eventually. And it was hard for me to find the sense of stability or sense of belonging thereafter, and to find myself first. It was hard because first I grew up with the culture's influence on me, then my ex-husband's influence on me. So like, who am I didn't even know who am I.
And often the divine feminine is sacrificing herself for everyone.
Constantly. So the 2 years, I did not date anyone, and again I was not physically involved with anyone. I literally swore celibacy, like I am not doing this. I want to heal, ascend, and then only when I get intuitions or I feel ready, I'm gonna do it.
And then you had your Kundalini awakening.
Yes, so that was the original question. So eventually, when I'm doing all this, I come to know I have my twin flame awakening. I come to know that I'm a twin flame and the connection is twin flame. And then and then only way I come to know that I can come to an union is to work on myself. And
And
how
how
can I
did you
work on
find
myself?
out? You kept having dreams, signs, synchronicities? Like, how did you know that you were twin flame?
Somebody told me.
Were you having all the synchronicities and the dreams, telepathy, and all that stuff?
I was having dreams of our past lives.
Okay, so you were getting that. Okay, and
Yeah,
then
and that was already when I was married. And I would tell him like, "Hey, I dreamt of you last night. This is XYZ. This is what I saw in my dream."
did he have the same dreams or different dreams or any dreams?
I wouldn't know. He would not tell me.
Okay, and then so tell us about your Kundalini.
So then I start meditating to work on myself, and that's when my Kundalini starts. So like I have my twin flame awakening, and a week and a half later, my Kundalini awakening starts. It's kind of okay, like doable in the beginning. I can just start feeling the energy rise from my sacral chakra, and it's not intense. And then as I go more deep in my meditation, it progressively becomes um, intense. And that lasted, my entire Kundalini awakening lasted 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling it. And then I have a video on my profile that I have pinned of how my Kundalini awakening was. There were three or four major um, situations where I was having walking orgasms, for
Mm-hmm.
the lack of better word.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I had that, I was outside in Barnes and Nobles. It was very embarrassing, and I did not know what's going on. So I let it pass. I come back home, and my twin texts me, and he texts me something borderline sexual,
Mm-hmm.
which he had never done before, ever, because his boundaries were very strong. When I'm married, he's not engaging with me in any of inappropriate ways. That's the first time he makes that comment.
So he's feeling it.
Yes, he's feeling it. And so I start laughing and I'm like, well, you're not the only one. I'm in the same boat as well. Then he's like, what's up? I'm like, I just had a walking orgasm in Barnes and Nobles, and he starts laughing. This is on text.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was the first instance, but the second instance was when I'm in the retreat. I eventually down the line a month later, and in that retreat, there was this one day I felt called, like, okay, I gotta sit a couple of hours, and those couple of hours were gonna be like 5 hours or something, because there was just so much that was coming up for me in the retreat that I needed to work through, especially regarding the Kundalini. So I go in my meditation cell and I sit at 12 o'clock, and I did not come out until 5:45. And I'm in and I am meditating, and my Kundalini is circulating through my entire body. And then I had the most vivid visual of I and my twin making out when I was meditating. Then I came out and I literally smelled like I had just made out.
So do you think that was your tantric sex you had in the
I
astral?
think so. That was my tantric astral sex.
And twins
Eh,
are natural at tantra. It's like ducks to water.
Yeah, and my phone was switched off because I'm in silent retreat. I don't know what's going on with my twin. So when I come out, I see that my man's gone crazy. He's texted me all over. I'm pretty sure he tried calling, because if I were that horny, he was gone over it and under completely.
Because they're the lower chakras, they're more physical, it's a
Yes.
lot for them. And you're lucky your twin flame spiritual is not always the case. So he was blowing up your phone, he wanted to see you.
Yes, and he knows, like, and it was not an attraction that he was feeling towards somebody else. It was specific towards me. And then I called him back after a couple of days, and I asked him, like, what's up? I saw your text. What's going on? And then his voice was very heavy, which I had never heard before. And that's when I realized, shoot, he's equally
Affected.
aroused as I was. And I said, okay, are you also very sexually aroused right now? He's like, yeah, and I want to see you. I'm going to drive 10 hours or 12 hours, wherever you are. Just tell me where you are. I'll come drive. I'm like, oh my God, what did just happen? And we both were shocked.
So the inner work was working, basically.
It was. And so then after we had the phone call, he went back to his divine masculine shell. We did not talk about it. That was the last phone call we actually had.
So
Um,
you never met physically after that then?
no, I never met him physically after the first time I met him.
And it's interesting because you've had all this astral life with him.
Yeah.
So what's your current situation?
We are still in physical separation, and we were in non-contact or kind of, low contact here and there. He did text me a month ago or so. I feel like he does want to text me or see me, but he's still trying to gather up the courage to do that, because when I was trying to reach out to him, he progressively rejected me, which put me in my dark night of the soul. And I accepted it, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna bother you hereafter.
And currently, this month has been very heavy, and a lot of twin flames are affected, including the divine masculine. So people are feeling the energy of them waking up, right?
Yeah, I think he had a very rough month in March and in April both. Just a lot processing and going through.
So, yes, any sort of advice or tips that you have for twin flames? Any closing message? Any things you would like to let everyone know? Because what I love about your story is that you were very spiritual from the beginning. Your divine masculine was also, you gravitated to go together. You also had to go through a very karmic, traumatic marriage, which you left, and you continue to work on yourself. And then you've had all these awakenings happen in the astral and all the downloads and all the energy stuff. And it's going to relate to a lot of people, actually. And what sort of tips or advice do you have on that front?
For the divine feminines, my advice is just keep doing for yourself, and your twin's gonna come back. There's no other way for this. And for divine masculines, my advice is there's no reason for you to fear being with your divine feminine. She is ready. That's why she is your divine feminine. And if she weren't, then you would not feel all that you feel for them. And they are the only people in the world who can give you the emotional grounding as divine masculines need.
Well, thank you very much, Meta. It's been a fabulous interview. I wish you all the best. People can get in contact with you for spiritual counseling regarding twin flames, abusive relationships, narcissists, figuring out whether someone is their twin flame, having that downloaded information letter, and all the things that you provide. And definitely you should check out your channel, especially the video about your Kundalini awakening and whatever else you've mentioned. But thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.